Listen, I have an idea.
It's how I feel when you make lemonade. Whatever today has given you. 5'11" headaches, still call it Thanksgiving. True.
Welcome to a sleepy edition of the Super Dupa podcast. I'm your host, Rob Griggs, here with the super producer, S. McMahon.
Yes.
That's
Man, it's
sounded
late,
like
man.
you were laying down, bro. Yeah, it's my fault.
It's
Sorry,
late.
dog. Sorry, dog. Thank you for checking out the Super Duper podcast, Super Duper at night. We don't take your listens lightly. Make sure you follow us on all socials. What up, Sarah at S.U.P.A, Dupa Pod, and online at hp53productions.com for our merch. You will also find additional content such as the Father Good podcast. I'm gonna just stop saying that. And I'm on S. McMahon with the Easy Smoke GM podcast. You guys get to
They say it's coming back at some point.
man. You didn't say that for years. You guys record this week?
We haven't yet. Hopefully this weekend.
Okay.
Bears play the Chiefs as we speak tomorrow night. So that'll be the final game of the preseason. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. They looked pretty good against Buffalo last week.
No doubt. Well, make sure you check out the Easy Smoke and GM podcast where you're listening to the SDP, and also find us on YouTube at HP53 Productions. So there's a bunch of ways you can find us. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. You know, we usually talk about seeing our faces as hats. My beard be popping on Bevel, but tonight y'all got the sleepy edition. So, you know, this might be a listening experience for the episode. But today I got a special guest. Actually, we've been on a roll of special guests, man. We had, we got my man from Blurs, had Jason Hike, and this week we got Dr. Williams because, Trump just, so this interview has been delayed a bit just because, stuff's going on in the week, and every day has been more stuff for us to talk about. But before we get to Dr. Williams, there's a couple of things I want to run by you, man. So, we had our unofficial segment, things Ez hasn't seen on the internet. Now, have you heard about K-pop demon hunters at all?
K-pop demon hunters? No.
So it's an anime. I guess it's anime movie that came out maybe a month ago, but now it's a worldwide phenomenon. So shout out to the Chipmunks, shout out to my nieces, aka the Squirrels. So it's like my son's, it was a song Soda Pop that he liked. We got the playlist, Chipmunk City. He's like, hey dad, can I add this to the playlist? I was like, all right, it was some random pop song he liked. Cool, nothing of it. And I was out with my nieces. I took them to lunch, and they had the K-pop Demon Hunter soundtrack. I was like, hey, this sounds pretty good. Oh, this song must they didn't like cool. Now we watched half of this movie. I was like, this movie's pretty good. So after hanging out with my nieces, got home, saw the entire movie with the boys, and I gotta say, I was like, this is a really good movie. Music is great. Songs are fantastic. It's a nice, 90-minute push. I'm thinking like, maybe it's just me. Maybe because, I'm dad, checking it out, music good. But then everywhere I go, on different podcasts and the news, everywhere, this K-pop Demon Hunters is all over the place. And it's just like, all of a sudden, Netflix got another hit, right? And it's these Korean dramas or just Korean content in general. It just blows up on Netflix, right? Because, people watch K-pop dramas. BTS is big. I'm sure if they do something on Netflix, that'd be big too. And now you have this K-pop Demon Hunters going. So you haven't heard of this at all, have you?
No, you're speaking Korean to me.
I would say, listen, take a chance and watch this. I think you might like it. I think in the first 5 minutes you might, well, Rob got me watching. And then if you stick through it, you might be you'll actually, I know you, because I'm saying you'll say it's decent. You're like, Rob, that sucked. That animation was the worst. What are you talking about, Rob? So what am I doing? This is for the audience. Yo, if y'all haven't watched K-pop Demon Hunters, have your kids watching with you to get an excuse. Go ahead.
I will say my wife loves the K-dramas on Netflix. She watches them religiously with the subtitles, and I can't get into it, but
and
She loves it.
it's a couple ladies I work with. It's like one woman is like into BTS.
What is BTS? What does that mean?
That's that K-pop group. That is Butter is their name. Is that famous song they
Uh,
had? Smooth. Man, bro, where you be at? You be at okay. I guess you at the games. So that is your job. But
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. But they're like a pretty big deal. BTS. You should just Google BTS. Actually, you might put Korean BTS. I don't want you to get messing with what.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
else
that might
come
something
up. I'll
will
be
pop
at
up.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
like
get me fired.
hold on. Like, guess what? 3 episodes a week, guys, because Ed's got free.
No, you know what? Those real talk though. I was, I work at the United Center, and
Yeah,
they had I don't know what group it was, K-pop, and
yeah.
I'm talking about people were camped out for
It's a big
days
deal. It's a big
waiting
deal. It's a big deal.
to get in. Had tents up on the west side of Chicago,
Didn't
waiting to
care.
get in the K-pop. That's
They
crazy,
did not care.
crazy.
Now, here's the thing. Shout out to PT because this is not a recommendation. This we're gonna make fun of this because PT hit me. Shout out to him and was like, Rob, make sure you talk about that Ice Cube movie, War of the Worlds. Have you seen that? I heard
I
about
haven't
it,
seen, so I've heard about the 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
bruh. Listen, and
It
I
can't
must.
be that bad.
So here's the thing. You'll enjoy it because we've been trained by Tubi. Shout out to Tubi. We gotta get back to our Tubi picks
Okay.
because on the Tubi movie, you don't expect much from it, right? You like, hey, they made a movie. Shout out to them. I'll finish it and watch it through. The War of the Worlds, it's like they just slid Ice Cube a check and said, "Hey, man, just give us like one day."
I
And
mean, the production value is decent, right?
I thought it was fine, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it felt believable to me, but I can see why people when it was so there is a scene, I ain't gonna lie, because you're not gonna watch it. It's a
No,
scene where
I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
okay, I don't want to get in the way, but there's a scene at like toward the end where Ice Cube has to do something and it does look like a Tubi scene. Like its production is cool, and it's like, why is his hand all wobbly? What kind of shot was they couldn't get this? I mean, but clearly it was Cube was like, I'm not leaving my house. Just so y'all know, I'm not leaving the crib. So y'all figure the rest out. I mean, all in all, I thought the movie was like it was enjoyable, right? At the crib, nothing to watch. I turned it on. It was like, okay, this was a cool hour and a half. That's not K-pop Demon Hunters. I tell you that much. But it was still a good watch. So
But 0%.
I wouldn't give it zero. But I know Shot PT was like, that's a Tubi movie, Griggs. I was like, man, y'all hate it. Jeez. But last thing is, before we get to Doc Williams, I know you saw. Have you seen the Dallas Cowboys American Team documentary yet?
I'm watching it
Oh
as we
man,
speak.
fantastic. Well, it's fantastic. Which episode are you on?
I am. I don't know what I'm.
But I guess what's happening in the
The
episode?
nine
If
the,
you're
the
watching,
nine, 94. They just lost the 94 NFC Championship game,
so they
and
didn't
so
go.
now it's Gimme Dion.
That's a good episode. It's a good
Yeah,
episode.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I won't say much, man.
That's what I was gonna do tonight.
But I will encourage everybody to watch that.
It's so good.
It's and there's people know the backstory of H53. Like they started out trying to do documentaries like those, right? And it's like when you watch a documentary like that, you're like, wow, this is how you tell a story. Again, we both agree the greatest sports documentary to me is the OJ one. Like
Yep. Made in
because
America.
because when you're done with that, you're like, he definitely
By the
did.
way, you saw OJ made an appearance.
I saw that. That was not
That's
nothing.
what.
Not nothing. And shout out to the '90s,
Uh,
man. It
One thing
features.
I did notice they took a little they took a little bit from The Last Dance
What you mean?
with the going back in time
Oh
with the
yeah, yeah,
timeline.
yeah. Listen,
They did. I'm noticing a lot of
are
documentaries
doing
are
that.
using that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, The Last Dance. It's to me, it's made in America, and it's The Last Dance, right?
I
It's
agree. I agree
made
with
in
that.
America. You just can't beat it. You just can't. That's a whole different level of investigation and just hours of stuff. Last Dance was just they had us in the chokehold, and it was good content, man. Still like for example, I can't watch Last Dance to this day because I can't walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah,
can't turn it off.
you're
I
glued
don't even
in.
watch
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
once I'm in, it's like I'm stuck.
yeah.
So yeah, so those are your Netflix. Check out recommendations. I guess we should say. Check those out. So
Actually, I didn't expect you to watch Watching the Cowboys.
Oh man, it's fantastic. I watched the Boston Celtics one. I watched the
The Celtic
well,
City.
yeah,
It
because
was really good.
but here's the thing too with the Cowboys. In sports, we watch anything sports related. It's Lakers, it's Cowboys, right? It's like you talk about those teams, people gonna watch. And I remember the '90s. Like I remember them winning the championships, and them being a team in the '90s, and it's still Dallas seems like a cool place. And I gotta say, I think for all that Jerry Jones people hate about him, he's an innovative guy, man. And I would love to see the stadium just see how it looks there in person. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah, I
Dallas,
wouldn't mind. I
Philly
wouldn't
is
mind going to check out a game there.
absolutely.
I like the backstory of how he made his money.
Yeah, yeah,
It's pretty interesting. And I didn't realize I knew both him and Jimmy Johnson were on. They played football at the University of Arkansas.
yeah, but not close they were.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know they were roommates, and I didn't know that they actually were pretty good players on that team.
Yeah, they were knocking head. That team was pretty
Yeah,
good, man.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
crazy.
So yeah, learned a lot in this so far.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a good document. So again, even if you're not a huge sports fan, I think if you watch this documentary, you'll kind of understand the culture of like the '90s. I mean, of course, you got like some sports, but
Tell you
you
what, stay
see the
stay away from
'90s.
the White House. That's all I'm gonna say.
My man, the president. But yeah, but listen,
The president. Let me
but
tell you about the White House.
everyone else was like, "Nah, not me. You're not getting me."
I
Everyone was like, I'm the president of the White House." Boo.
love me some Michael Irvin, man.
Yeah, so check it. K-pop Demon Hunters and the America's team, Dallas Cowboys. And if you just ain't got nothing to do, I say watch War of the Worlds. If you just you got some time to kill.
I'm gonna check it out this weekend.
So we'll see if it's bad. Shout out to PT. So here we have the one and only Dr. Williams, and we go with All Around the World with World. All right, another day, another episode with my big brother, the one and only Dr. Dwayne Williams. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, baby brother? With that, got the right name on your shirt. I see that.
The number one liberal arts college in the nation. Google it.
Okay, so you say, man, look, next time I'm rocking my McAllister College shirt, I'm just gonna say that. I'm tired of all this.
Y'all like number 9? Like number 9,
listen,
10?
Y'all play the games. All I'm gonna say is this. I'm wearing my orange and blue next time.
Please do.
See me on this screen, and we'll let the audience decide.
Hey, man, they know if you Google us, y'all will see. You'll see. But World, the last few episodes, we've discussed it, and you've been reaching out because, our president has just been presidenting. He's been trumping, you know what I'm saying?
He's been trumping.
He's been trumping for sure. And I know we've just kind of made this pact to just every so many weeks have you on and kind of recap and give perspective for people. I know you got your 3 C's: context, screwed up. Yes.
Context, content, and connection.
There we go. And we're gonna go through
every time.
Every time we're gonna do the 3 C's. So just to level set for people, what we're talking about today is we're talking about, and because you are in the DC area where and it's crazy. Like, again, one of our first years we were on a pod, we always talked about the war on information. And that was something that always stuck with me. You're like, Robbie, it's not about these other stuff. It's a war on what's the right and true information that's being shared to the people. And every time I look at the news, I see that because I saw a guy today, like they were protesting Vance. He was coming through.
Yes.
And they were like, yeah, you see those ignorant old hippies, they don't even know about DC. It's the worst city in the world, the worst city to live in. So, and I'm thinking like, I ain't heard that nowhere.
That's
you know what
ridiculous.
I'm saying? And it's like, and they just got to, and so they're making a police state. But to level set, we talked about this on the pod, shout out to Ez, a couple of weeks ago when the protests were happening in LA. It was a whole fight with Governor Newsom, and it was like, hey, it's not nothing, right? This is not nothing. This is gonna be. Right. So I'm gonna just read a couple lines that I got so people can level set what we are and let you give the 3 C's. So President Trump has recently deployed significant numbers of National Guard troops to Marines in LA and DC. These moves have attracted intense legal and political scrutiny. In LA, Trump federalized sent about 4,000 California National Guard troops and 700 Marines to LA in June, following the controversial immigration raids and ensuing protests. Troops have since left. Come on, Robbie.
Gotcha.
But it's but they're still making sure they're still having a military presence out there. And so in DC, Trump invoked a rarely used powers to activate at least 800 National Guard troops in the Capitol, take temporary control of the DC department, and deploy federal agents. Since August 11th, more Republican-led states have sent hundreds of additional troops to DC to support this move, with the total number of expected to be more than double soon. So, of course, talk about other cities being next, more Democratic kind of cities, more like New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Oakland, and our hometown, Chicago. And that initially led to this conversation, right? It's like
Exactly.
for so I level set for people. But I want to make sure you give your 3 C's, sir.
So look, here's the context, and I want to be very clear. Washington, D.C. is inarguably rather, one of the greatest cities in the world, in the country. It truly is a great
It's one
city.
of my
I
favorite cities to
love
visit.
D.C. for
One
a
of my
lot
favorite
of reasons.
cities.
Now, both of us are Chicago. We come from a great city, so we can afford to be generous about other cities. So the first thing to understand is that the narrative, the rhetoric about D.C. being a crime-infested, gang-ridden, overran by gangs is not only a false narrative, it's patently disingenuous, it's dishonest. And I think at one level, what it really does is feed a narrative that really doesn't even exist. It's almost like you're myth making about something that was a myth in the first place. I mean, DC is really a great city. It's a city that over the last decade, almost 2 decades, has grown. It has a great art scene. It has, of course, all of the great museums. It's one of those spaces where young people see themselves coming to, building families. It's physically beautiful. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have issues that cities have, but two things I think are important in terms of the context. One, crime has been objectively going down. No matter what the argument is, at the end of the day, there's no national crisis that requires the federal government to intercede. Okay. Secondly, at the end of the day, this is still about the fact that we want to target cities that are ran by Democrats, and I would argue by Democratically led mayors that are African American mayors. You look at LA, you look at Chicago, you look at DC, you look at New York, you can look at these places. There's something there, right? And see our earlier podcast and talk about what that's really about. But it's the same narrative. Ultimately, we're going to tap into the meaning systems. Cities are bad, they are dark, Black people are incompetent, they can't run cities. So I, as the great patronizing father, need to come in and fix this problem. I'm going to fix our cities. Our cities need to be pretty, need to be wonderful. But the thing you need to know about DC is that DC has 700,000 American citizens. We are not a colony. DC isn't a colony. It's an American city with Americans in it, with all the full rights and privileges that come with being an American, right? Chicago, other places, the scale of it, the problems may be there and they're being managed. But it's so funny because of all the places that Trump would pick to try to vilify, DC has both the visual, is visually beautiful. I mean, one of the things I don't like about DC, I often say, is that it's not gritty enough. It's not, it's not tough enough. It's not dirty enough. I like Baltimore in some ways because it reminds me a lot of Chicago. So I think it's kind of funny when you talk about the city being ugly and dirty. It's just, it really is just a lie that he tells himself. It's not one that objectively you can see.
Yeah, because
You
I say
know.
this, I've been to Baltimore recently, actually, and it's like Baltimore, it's just like Compton, but like
All right.
shout to Baltimore, shout to Baltimore, my bad. But
Hey,
like
watch it, man. Be more,
I
baby.
know, they come for me, but the
Yeah.
thing is, but all jokes aside, to your point, DC number one, it's yeah, every city got its spots, but doggone it, the president is in DC. You know they gonna
Right.
keep it tight.
Right.
It's some level, right? It's not
Right.
gonna be all the way bad. What we
It's
talking about?
clean, it's clear, and the idea that because he sees something, he says, "Oh, we don't have like this idea of vilifying poor people, people who are unhoused." Listen, DC has, by every count, what the data says is that there are about between 800 and 1,000 unhoused Americans living in DC.
Hmm.
Some of them are in places near George Washington University, near Georgetown, other places. But it's not some massive encampment of tens of thousands of people who are overrunning the city. It's an eyesore. And the issue is this: there are resources that are available. If you want to deal with an unhoused issue in nation's capital, the president is uniquely positioned to add resources to that. But instead, he vilifies them and acts like people who are unhoused are criminals. allowing being unhoused being a criminal. So you're criminalizing a social problem and then saying that's one of the reasons that we have all these criminals here. We have all these foreigners. We have all these different people, these aliens. It's always about some kind of unknown thing that visually is unappealing. And I'm going to step in and save the day because we should have a beautiful capital. The capital is visually beautiful. The vistas are beautiful. The people are beautiful. The spaces are beautiful. It's hard pressed to make the case that DC isn't a beautiful city. It's also hard pressed because it's also very telling because really this is about his own personal preference. There are things he doesn't like, but that's not enough to seize control of a major city, of a capital city. It just shouldn't happen. And the final point I will make is this: DC is a unlike Chicago, a place that has a certain kind of grit. It's a diamond. It's such a easy city to get around. You really want to make some headway in the city. It has 700,000 people. The scale of the problems aren't as big in other places. There's been a concerted effort among the city council, city leaders, to really be intentional about addressing specific things like issues around youth and what's happening with youth curfews. They put things in place. I haven't always agreed with the policies, but what I can say is this: there's a clear responsiveness on the ground from the local leaders to say we need to deal with this because it reflects poorly on the city. There are pockets where there are real issues, and we can deal with them, and they've done them. Again, we can argue about the policy, but we can't say they haven't been responsive. Final point. This is the one thing that bothers me the most. Uh, in a city with 700,000 people that has now a presidential control of the police with soon to be maybe 2,000 federal troops, National Guard there. They're putting the people, they're putting those people in places where the crimes aren't happening. So the example that I give, and it still bothers me to this day, there was recently a 1-year-old girl who was killed in the part of the city that's called Southeast. And I've never heard the president say, I'm going to find that person. All right. The people in those communities are like, we don't believe that we need to have federal assistance. We need to have the president seize control. But in the places where there are people are most vulnerable who want some more policing to create the safety, you don't see them there. They're in the Lincoln Memorial. They're at the Amtrak station. They're in the station. They're in the places where tourists go. But guess what? The safest place to be in DC is on the National Mall. Safest place to be in DC is near Union Station. But the places where people are really vulnerable, where their security, their real sense of security has been made fragile, you don't see them there. And you see the kind of, we have X number of arrests. The arrests are for a traffic violation, a driving without a license, things that local police can do with their eyes closed. So again, if you are interested in improving the quality of life for people in the District of Columbia and visitors, you will position those resources differently. That's the first thing you do. You put them in the Ward 7 and 8 of the city. Number two, you would not withhold $1 billion of tax dollars from American citizens so they can make choices about how to do that. So the reality is, this isn't about policing. This is really about a kind of political propaganda which says, I'm in control. People who are of certain political ilks are incompetent, and I'm the person who can do that.
Yeah, because on the pod we talk about sirens a lot, like talking about being predicted for the future. And then a lot of times you see a story in the paper that you're like, that seems strange, and then next thing you know, that's like the new wave, right? So I feel like this is a siren of times because it hasn't even been a year, and this is already how he's approaching major cities and major places, right? So if he does replicate this in DC, kind of his base, and goes to other cities, now we're looking at in the next 4 years a military state across the country that's like in democratic spaces, right? And so, and also I think about the defund the police conversation that was happening in 2020, right? That became a thing, of course, when George Floyd was murdered. And you always said it was that was a bad tag, horrible, horrible like discussion, but it was really just around, hey, some of these crimes that are happening are not happening just because it's like not enough police presence, so on and so forth. There's some support, other additional support, mental health support, just other support that can be in place of just full on, aggressive police.
Right. Over policing in the wrong way. I would say two things. One, the conservatives, the Trumps, followers have won the debate about the language, the labeling, right? So you say
Hmm.
defund the police and people that means something different. But the reality is that it should have been about the word should have been about increased accountability, increasing the resources to ensure that all Americans are safe.
Right.
So the argument I would make is that we can argue about Black Lives Matter, about defund the police, about DI. But remember, these labels are all distractions. They
Yep.
aren't. They don't get at what the issues are. When you frame the issues around the labels are helpful depending on what side of the equation you're on. But the reality is that guess what? The evidence still shows that since George Floyd's murder, in those communities that are most vulnerable in Latino and African American and poor communities, they aren't safer. We've still seen those kind of police killings. We've seen a pullback of those things. So while you can say defund the police is seen as a problem, but the issues that engendered that required that new label haven't been really fully responded to.
Yeah.
Not fully as should have. So, you know, we don't need to defund the police. We need to make sure that the police is accountable in ways that make sense to all citizens. And I have argued, and I've said here on the part many times, my argument has been that the response to the call for accountability was less policing, and that in fact led to increased crime. So their response was, well, my hands are tied, I can't do anything, and so therefore I can't stop carjacking, I can't use the available police resources and strategies to deal with that. And then you turn around and blame the very people that you stop policing. First, you're policing in ways that are problematic, excessive force, no knock warrants, you're doing those things. And when people say we don't want that kind of security, the security we want is to move into spaces in a way that all Americans do. And we want the police and others who are supporters of the police to use resources that don't require the police officers to be mental health workers, to be nurses and doctors, but to do things that keep all neighborhoods have the chance to be safe. And so that's not happening in DC. DC isn't safer because the president has decided to seize control of the police. It's
Hmm.
not safer. And the statistics, the data just doesn't show that. In fact, it shows that crime has, as not I won't say it's went up, but it hasn't improved anyway. The stats don't show that. People don't feel safer. And I would generally say that when you go back to Project 2025, none of this is all the things they said they would do. So they're keeping their word. So bravo for the conservatives. They're keeping their word. This is not new. The reality is that they're keeping their word, but the cost of that is that the same communities are still vulnerable. The same communities are still not getting policing. The same communities are still not getting police accountability. What they are getting, right, is this idea that you can seize control of local authority
Mm.
and undermine the authority and the kind of citizenship of Americans, and people are okay with it. They're all it's the nation's capital. We can do it, and we can, we got to do this because otherwise people are going to be marauding. It'll go from the city to the suburbs to rural areas, and the country will be overran. There's no chance of that happening, and there's no chance of that happening because we can see in DC that the surrounding suburbs are safer, and people in the surrounding suburbs are not have a great fear that DC is going to explode and become this kind of cancer that sucks in the surrounding suburbs of Northern Virginia or Maryland. That's not happening. That's not a real concern, and people see it for what it is, which is a disingenuous attempt to undermine local authority.
Sure. And I know how you're gonna respond to this question, but I still want to set it up just because people are stupid and they like to take stuff out of context. But you know what? Because people on Facebook are still like going, I'm sure that's the guy I'm thinking of in particular that's like, well, so
Mhm.
y'all mad about Trump doing this, but in Chicago, blah 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 blah, we might need the National Guard here, right? So what do you say to that, Dumbo? That might that might
This is
go,
what this is
or
what I
don't we
say
need
to them.
because we both heard people say that. I mean, and
I
there's
hear
been
it all
times
the
it's gotten
time.
bad. It's gotten
But
bad,
it's
but
the
like,
same.
go
It's
ahead.
the same argument.
Yeah.
If you took a map of the city of Chicago or a map of Washington D.C., we actually know what a disproportionate amount of crime are happening, violent crime. And the question I have is, how are we deploying resources in those areas? Trump isn't going to send people to the west side of Chicago, to Jeffrey Matter or whatever area of the city to ensure that those people are safe. What I would say to them is that if the resources are deployed to get the results, you might get people supporting you. But people are not feeling supported because they don't see 2,000 National Guard on in the nation's capital, near the capital area, as improving their life. They don't feel safer. They feel now what you have are checkpoints in community in which people now have They worry about ICE. They have to worry about National Guard, local police. You know, DC is one of the most police states. We have tons of overlapping federal. Almost every federal department has its own police department, right? We got a Capitol Police. We got the DEA. We got many of these agencies have their own policing. So I would tell that person this: look at the map and ask yourself, is the city of Chicago, if Trump were to send the police in, would he be sending police to the corner of Roosevelt and Francisco, where I grew up on the West Side? Hardly, no chance. He's not going to be, in that part. He's not going to be in the West Side of Chicago. He's not going to be in those places in the South Side where we can figure out where it is. So, we know where the concentrations of political, I'm not political activity, criminal activity might be. What we don't know is, why is there less policing in those areas? Why don't people feel more safe? It isn't because we had a federal officials come in. There's just the evidence doesn't show that. Doesn't show that. I'm telling you, if the National Guard were to show up in Chicago, people aren't going to be safer any more than they are in LA or in Washington, D.C. The two models that we have, having decreased crime and having increased people's sense of security, is actually done, I would say, the opposite. People in LA and in Washington, D.C. are feeling more vulnerable with these National Guards and these federal police officers combining with local police. Many of them aren't police. Like the FBI said, we investigate crimes, but we don't know the local community. We don't have an organic understanding of where people are. We haven't developed relationships that can help us solve crimes. I mean, we deal with issues that aren't related to this. So we know that they're not going to deal with the issue of the genuine fragility that people might have around crime. And here's the other thing that people don't say. I saw the president make a comment about this, which is, by pulling resources away, federal resources away, you now are making our national security is now vulnerable. Because if I'm an FBI agent, I'm looking for trying to stop somebody for a traffic stop in Southeast DC, then I'm not looking at issues that are about international security issues that might impact the country. We're not doing those things. We only have so many resources, and we're deploying them in ways that reflect someone's personal preference rather than the political needs of any of these individual cities. So someone complaining about, hey, we're not complaining about Trump doing this, that, or the other, doesn't understand how he's deploying the resources in the places where he's deployed them.
Yeah. And I think my biggest concern is just like, to your point, you said it, some of these people aren't police officers who kind of know how to manage and move this, right? They see some stuff happen, or they think that's what they're supposed to stop. They start busting some stuff. I was like, hey man, they were just kind of meeting together, or, you know what I mean? It becomes a bigger situation than it needs to be, right? That's my concern, because I think in the book you have to read Wilmington's Lie, like kind of how they talk about how the police started in the late 1800s, right? It was like to corral these just Black people who had the nerve to try to rise up and do something better.
The audacity to rise up.
Right, exactly. And so then, but I feel like that, that can kind of repeat itself in a negative way as well. These people, because they're almost given the automatic. The thought is, you're here to make sure it's bad. So if I gotta look for something bad, if I see something bad, that's what you sent me here for, right?
Right. Like, and I gotta find arrests. I gotta have statistics. I gotta show that the 30 days that I'm in control of the nation's capital's police, we did something different, So they've questioned the data, they've questioned the policing, they've questioned the leadership. It's all ultimately about undermining people's confidence about the competence of the local leadership. That's what's happening. I have to step in because the people who have been tasked with solving this problem, okay, are incompetent. So I'm doing this in the best interest of the country. And this is what I would tell people. Donald Trump is the same person who called for the arrest and execution of the Central Park Five. Okay. He called for it. They were innocent. All right. But he said, hey, he took out a full-page ad in the New York Times and he used the same type of language he's using now. Right. They're gangs, they're marauding. And that's what led to everything from stop and frisk, which led to the issues that we had with George Floyd. It was people like Donald Trump who's the biggest kind of voice around those issues. This is a man who has no credibility on the issue of crime, right? And to me, the ultimate insult is 1,500 people attacked the Capitol, and those people got pardoned. They committed a crime. They tried to overthrow the government. There was a legitimate insurrection with people admitting that they were guilty, doing time. He didn't think that DC was. He didn't think he needed the National Guard at that point. He didn't think that he needed to that the city was overran with criminals then, and in fact they were. So we know that. So if you're a person who going back to your days living in Manhattan, you were calling for people who were innocent to be jailed and possibly facing execution. If you're a person who had 1,500 people seize control of the Capitol, attempt to seize control of the Capitol, overthrow the government, you're going to have a credibility problem when you start talking about crime. You're not a law and order person. You are a chaos and disorder president. You are a chaos and disorder president. That's why the locals are like, we try to work with these people, but they're unreasonable. And I have said, I've been a person who's been very critical of the mayor. I said that this issue that we're facing in this area started when the president said, I need to have you take up Black Lives Matter. I need you to have you erase Black Lives Matter's plaza. They thought, well, if we do that, maybe that will keep them at bay. But the reality is, it was the start, not the end.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah,
I got you.
No. And I think that's a good call, right? Because it's like, what's the real end goal here? And I was wondering, and maybe touch on it a bit, like why DC? Like I see LA. LA was like opportunistic, right? It's like, okay, this is happening right now. You need me to do here. But it was like DC was like out of nowhere because when nobody talking about DC, you know what I'm saying? Like nothing was happening.
But DC is unique. It has a home rule charter, which does give the federal government, some particular powers. Okay, so it's a vulnerable urban space. Okay, it has a unique relationship with the federal government, right? And if the federal government wanted to say, here's the funny thing: if the federal government wants to make it its business to fix the so-called social problems of DC, it has the capacity to do it, but it doesn't want to do that, right? It wants to point out that this is a space that is flawed, that is fraught with all these problems. And so it wants to undermine the idea that you cannot trust Black people to lead themselves. And in DC, you can't, like, for instance, we have a Democratic governor in Illinois, we have a Democratic mayor. There are things that Trump may want to do in Chicago that he can't do. Okay, he can use the kind of false narrative of it's a national emergency. It has limits of what you can do in states, but DC is vulnerable in that way. I think, secondly, I feel like our local mayor, until those federal troop came, and she's a DC native, she was a council member, she generally loves the city. She thought, I have to do what I think is best for my hometown. I have to make deals and compromises and strike a balance. And she thought she was doing that because, remember, before this takeover of the police, the issue was that the nation's capital was going to get the Washington Commanders back with a stadium. And that was actually, people were mad. They were divided about that. Should we give a $2 billion to get a stadium? Should we do that? And suddenly there was a lot of kind of good press because the NFL wanted a stadium. The president wanted a stadium, and the mayor wanted a stadium. And she was thinking, hey, I've removed Black Lives Matter. Excuse me. I've taken actions to get a stadium for the NFL. Why would they want to have a problem with us? And the reality is, they were saying that you're on our list. You're on our list of incompetent people, and you're incompetent city. And they were mad about the idea of so-called sanctuary cities. So this is just an example of it. You look at the language. They're going right back to their 2025 playbook, and they're saying sanctuary cities, urban spaces led by Black people, by democratically led cities. We're going to take them on, and they got 3 years to do it.
Yeah. So I was watching Abby Phillips last night on CNN, and she has that like table for five type of show.
Yeah.
And I dig it, right? Because I had different voices on. I think it's good because shout out to Ez. This thing is he watches Fox News. He's like, I need to hear what the other side is saying, just so I know what they're saying. And so, but she pointed out like how hypocritical the Republican Party is. Say, for example, they were discussing how Trump is pretty much trying to put government buying shares of company and parts of companies, right? Like if you either do this. You either do this or you get a tariff, right? And it's like, hey, and so before that, it was like if Joe Biden wouldn't done that, anything like that. Oh, you see, this is the problem, the deep state, all this kind of crap.
Right.
But
Right.
it's perfect when President Trump does it. All that to say is, I remember the reversal of Roe versus Wade was this whole thing about like, no, it's not about, we're not taking women's rights, we're just giving it back to the states. And now here it is, an anti-state, anti-city initiative going,
Right.
I as a president, because you states can handle this decision, but you can't handle this, right? And that just and it's counterintuitive to the decision, and it feels like, how do they keep getting away with this world? You know what I'm saying? It's like we all are watching the same news, right? We're all watching this, and is it just that because you and I went to fine liberal arts colleges that we just understand?
College,
you know,
yeah.
Exactly. What is it that people are missing, man? Seriously.
I don't think people are missing things. I think what happens is that, again, let's go back to your original when we first started.
Yeah.
How is the information being disseminated? If you have when people have the right information, I see citizens saying, "Hey, I got concerns about crime and safety like anyone else." But if the information says that crime has been improving, has been going down precipitously, then I'm not sure why they're doing it. But the reality is that if it gets muddled, if you are remember, there are multiple conversations going on about safety. There's a group of people who think all cities are unsafe no matter what, no matter they don't care. Because remember, we're having a conversation, a public discourse that's of consequence about a group of Americans who don't think that facts matter. So you can't win with facts, right? My argument has always been to counter response, to not let the negative advertisement about the DC being an ugly city, being a crime city. You need more voices. And one of the things that the mayor called on was, hey, citizens of Washington, allies of Washington, please counter the narrative, right? Post pictures in your social media. Talk about your positive experiences. Talk about those very places where you've gone. Like when I look at the so-called Doge person being beat up, and this was the trigger because it was unsafe. If you know DC, you know that he was on Swarm. He's on the street that he was on at 3 o'clock in the morning. Anybody could have been subjected to that, right? Sure. Being in that particular place at that time in the morning doesn't mean you will be a victim of a crime, but it also is a place where you wouldn't be surprised at 3 o'clock in the morning in the city that if somebody was a so-called criminal, why they might pry on that place. That street is dark. It's a small space. It's not in a space where there are lots of police. It's off the kind of beaten path. It's in the U Street corridor, but it's not a place where people go. It's a residential area. So the reality is, when people are listening and they don't know Washington, D.C. or Chicago or L.A., all they have are the images. I've said this over and over again, Rob. History is an image-making process. What we see, we often come to believe to be true. It doesn't make a difference what the facts are. If I believe that cities are unsafe, I'm looking for evidence to confirm my bias that cities are unsafe.
Yeah.
And the only way you can counter that is not really with facts, but with the counter images which undermine that. We need to do more on my side of the ball, your side of the ball, to counter those images. Everybody I know has a positive experience having gone to Washington, but they're not speaking as loudly, as frequently as those who are saying, look how terrible DC is. You got someone like J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, saying the things he's saying about the Capitol. But his experience in the Capitol, it belies his actual lived experience. All right. And so he's not unsafe. He wasn't unsafe as a senator. He wasn't unsafe. He was a law student. His wife wasn't unsafe when she worked before she became second lady. But we're not telling those stories. And I'm a historian. What's my job? I tell stories to provide content, context, so that people can make the connections. If you don't have the information that you need, how would you be making the connections if nobody gave it to you? That's our task. Yeah. That's our task.
Yeah.
No.
I gotta say, man, like it's heartbreaking because I feel like, and again, maybe because I'm older, I understand it more. When I was young, I thought this is how politics worked, right? There's a problem. Like we all agree, there's these series of problems we got to solve, be it crime, drugs, global, our global interactions, whatnot, right? And the Democrats and Republicans, and I'm simplifying it, in effect, where we got an answer to the problem. We have an answer, we had different answers to the same problem, but we still want to address the problem, right? And so the person that went out, they were going to attack this problem from their perspective. That's how it
Right.
was. But I just feel
Right.
like now we're not even in the problem solving business anymore, right? It's like
Right.
like you said. I think you said it perfectly, but something I just hadn't considered. They're not even going to the parts of the city that need the policing.
Right.
It's just more of a show, right? And it's just a show of power more than anything else.
It
Versus
is.
like, all right, yeah, because nobody's not saying there's not a problem, right? And I feel like we're making more problems rather than solving the problems that are in front of us, and that is just concerning, world, because it's like it ain't even a year yet. We have not hit day 365 yet, and this is the trajectory which we're moving, man. So like, I'm just yeah,
But look, Robert, they've been consistent.
yeah,
There is nothing that I've seen
yeah.
when you talk about the issue about seizing control in the capital city, increasing policing in LA. When you look at to me, this is my own view, the just unforgivable, inexcusable attack on the national narrative when it comes to the Smithsonian. They're all versions
Oh
of the
my
same thing.
God,
Here's
yeah,
the issue. When the president says, hey, they're talking too much about slavery, making us look bad, or some version of that.
yeah,
My response to that what John Hope Franklin said. Our task is to tell the unvarnished truth. I trust citizens, but how can they make decisions if you're telling me that I can't even tell them what the truth is? Like
yeah,
I'm literally going to get in trouble. Okay, so remember that everything you're seeing that kind of makes you scratch your head or frustrates you or demoralize you in some way was presented to you in Project 2025. If you go through, and I
yeah,
said you can look, you got the tape for it. Look back.
yeah, yeah. We got
Everything
it.
they said they were going to do, they've done. So they're just going through their list. They waited for years and they said, if we seize control of the state again, here are the things we're going to do. We're going to attack these particular departments. We're gonna attack issues around our foreign aid. We're gonna attack the cities that we don't like. We're gonna look at these public these arts institutions that are telling stories that are challenging our ideas about democracy and expanding them and have the idea of having multiple. We're gonna do all those things. They're just doing them, and the reality is that people may be stunned, but you can't be permanently stunned. You have to do what does Spike Lee say in all his films? Wake up. You talk
Mhm.
about woke? It's not about being woke. The point is that wake up and just actually say what your experience is. Do you really believe that the Smithsonian is telling bad stories about the country because they want the people to hate the country? No. Do you really believe that there's so much crime in the streets? If you look at, for instance, the amount of tourism that comes to cities. There's a reason that seventh graders from Idaho Falls, Idaho, from Fort Smith, Arkansas, come here for their national trips to the capital. If it was really dangerous, people wouldn't be coming from those places. They don't have to come these large distances. So we know that these tour buses, these school tours are coming here. You have thousands of children who can say, "Hey, I was in the capital and it was beautiful,"
Yeah.
but you don't hear those stories.
No, you don't. And I think, and you said it best. It's like also this is supposed to be the place where the history was uniform, and everybody when they come to hear it, it's like you said, the unvarnished history. And now it's becoming a history that protects certain people. Like you hear these comments about what's in the news, people saying slavery wasn't that bad, or only 2% of the population was really enslaved. It's like, are y'all serious? Like,
Right.
and it's like they're
But
trying to
but negative
undermine.
advertising works. It
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
If you begin to think that certain things are debatable, if you really believe like, hey, remember, we're gonna have a lot of conversations about this in the coming months. Next year's the 250th anniversary of the United States.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, the the narrative of our country is worth fighting for. Okay, I
Mm,
believe is worth fighting for. When you've been in the National Museum of African American History and Culture, when you've been in the American History Museum, when you've been in the Native American Museum, when you've been in the art spaces that are in our nation's capital, you have an affirmative obligation to simply insist that the narrative be told, right? Right? We are good and we are ugly too. What makes us great is that in spite of those truths, we've been able to fashion this multiracial democracy that has achieved greatness. They don't want to hear that part. They want to say we've achieved greatness, but please don't tell us about the path that we took. Please don't tell us about the experiences of indigenous people, of poor people, of African American people, of women. Like if you use those words, somehow you're being un-American. It's just the opposite. Those are the things that make us American. It's that both of those things are there. And when you go to the museums, you have a chance to see those things. What makes cities great? What makes particular pockets of our community great? Talking about multiple voices is not a dividing. It's actually a united. It's the United States. That's what unites us. And the idea that leaving it out will clearly divide us. And so that's what the museums have done really well. And I know why people are scared about it because it is consequential. It does cause people to have a pause. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone, and they told me, "Hey, the book Stamp. Our parents don't want kids reading that book because it makes white kids feel shame. It makes them feel guilty." And what I said was the intention of the book isn't to make them feel guilty; it's to actually lift the responsibility of that guilt, real or imagined, by simply having them have the facts. And the facts are this: we have to ask ourselves, what is the cost to any country when you don't see everybody as a human being? You could have slavery. You could have policing in a certain way. You could have all kinds of, there are consequences. And that you learn that in school. And the safest place to learn that is in a school. You can't talk about slavery in a workplace, but in a school setting with the right supports and the right set of facts, it has real implications for being very transformative. But they don't want folks transformed in that way, and that's what upsets me. So
Yeah.
you don't want to see cities as competent places because then you have to admit that it isn't as scary as you want to. You don't want the museums to tell powerful, creative narratives about the experiences because that would cause you to have to say some of the prior policies were problematic and we probably shouldn't have done them. Admitting that you were wrong about something that happened in the past doesn't make the country weak, it makes it strong.
Yeah. And even that point you were making, it made me more appreciate, like, because for example, as you said right there, stand from the beginning, people are not having questions about the book, and I'm sure when it came out, it was like accepted that hey, this is our history, what happened. But this even conversation makes me appreciate like how difficult it must have been for Frederick Douglass to ask more of America, right? In that time, you know what I'm saying, W. Du Bois, all those people, like, because we take it for granted you can just write a book, we can have a pod talking about, hey,
Right.
y'all messing this up, yada yada. But then they were writing this stuff, and it's like, who knows if it's gonna come out? These words have lived on so far. Until I think
Exactly.
that's gonna be the title of the episode, "The Narrative Worth Fighting For." Because I think, we all try to end what people can do. I think that's
Mhm.
it. Fight for the
Right.
narrative, right?
Fight
Because
for the narrative.
we know what
Yeah.
we hear, we know what we can see. Because I don't know if I told you, world, I'm taking like on as a personal crusade. Especially with the recommends that you give me, but I just buy a lot of books that's about Black history just to
Yeah.
have it. Just to have like the physical copy in
Yeah.
my
That's what I
hand.
told you.
You
It sends
can't
the
take it
message.
from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you said, we
Yeah.
have to keep fighting for this narrative. So I encourage everybody that's listening, like in your own way and on time, because it's so easy to be like, it's over, it's done, I'm moving to
Yeah.
France. So I'm doing no.
No,
We have to
no.
fight for our
Douglas talked about that.
narratives. Yeah.
No, no. This is our country. We built it. All
Mm,
right. We collectively have built it in different ways. And to deny that, it's denying those things, right? So, we got Douglas, we got Du Bois, but remember, we're from Chicago. We got Ida B. Wells, okay?
absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
got we got the incomparable Ida B. Wells. We come from a city and a tradition in which, podcasting and sources and newspapers and all those things, it's the same tradition. And all of them, Douglas, Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, all the amazing other men and women who fought, they're always fighting for the narrative. They're not fighting to say, I want you to be guilty. They're fighting because they believe so much in the country. If they believe it's worth fighting for, they literally, and we both know this, I wouldn't give up blood, sweat, and tears for just winning the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Just having let the
Mm,
narrative exist, and then let the people come and look and see if we can pivot on from one perspective to another and see the country differently. There is nothing about the ugliness of America that's going to make people hate America. It's going to question and make us better. But you can't do that if the narrative is incomplete, if it's fractured, if it's frayed, if it's obscured, if it's made invisible or denied. Nothing can come from that. I'm telling you, that's the place where you fight. That to me, I'm telling you right now, I might be podcasting from a jail because when they move and do things on the National Museum of African American History, I'm going to physically go to the streets on that one because
Yeah.
I love the country so much and the narrative of our country so much. It's to me, it's worth organizing and galvanizing for the purpose of defending that narrative. That narrative is worth fighting for. The Smithsonian and other museums are worth fighting for. The idea that the nation's capital should not be a police state, that narrative is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And again, when I see a National Guard in Ward 7 or 8 asking questions about who is the person who killed a 1-year-old black girl, when I hear that question asked, then I'll know that they're serious. Until that happens, no way,
Yeah.
right? Until Ward 7 and 8, until the city of the whole nation's capital can be safe, we need to fight for the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm gonna join you in your challenge, man, because I think that's something we, as everybody's listening to the pod, that the Smithsonian, the National History of African American History, National Museum of African American History, right? They start messing with that. Everybody's just jump on the plane, get to DC, and just
We got
protest.
physical bodies that go around that building,
I would
right?
agree.
That there is no crime committed like telling the history of our country, and it's not just about slavery, but slavery is one of the central things that make we get there. That the experience of Native Americans is one. You're gonna tell a story without women, without Native Americans or African Americans, without Latinos. What story are you gonna have, right? You're not gonna have. It's not much of a story. We need the story because those stories are the glue. And it doesn't make sense, but it makes people feel good because they can say, Steve, if you tell that story, you make me feel bad. I only make you feel bad if you don't understand why the story is worth fighting for. It doesn't. All right. History is about the past, and it's not really about the past, about the present and all that we do. That's Baldwin. It's in the museum. You can go see it for yourself. All right. Don't take my word for it. Go see Baldwin's work and then go look at the museum and see if it makes sense to you.
Yeah. Well, as always, man, this is a great discussion and conversation. I think it just reminded me that, in the midst of all the jokes that we tell, the fun that we have, there's some serious stuff that's going on. I feel like, again, in doing this pod and talking with you, talking with you more in the last few years, I'm just more in tune to the news. I know how to listen to it a little differently, but I just know that for most people aren't hearing this stuff, or they hear it in this background noise. That's why we try to do these episodes and these pods for you guys, because I'm sure they're hearing about the police states, but like the museum stuff is blowing right past. It's like, no, that's just as big a deal, you know what I mean? And it's like, everything is happening at the same time that everybody's to keep paying attention to and keep your hands on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So as we do it, before we wrap up, man, you know what we gotta do.
Here we go. Listen, this is you pitched underhand to me this week. So first book, you got to do Chocolate City, A History of Race and Democracy in the Nation's Capital. Chocolate City, A History of Race and Democracy in the Nation's Capital. Author Chris Myers Ash, ASCH, and George Derek Musgrove. Again, Chocolate City, A History of Race and Democracy in the Nation's Capital, Chris Myers Ash, and George Derek Musgrove. That's a must-have. It gives you all the context, the content, and connection to make about the nation's capital. Everything that's happening will make sense. Yeah. Number 2, not a book, but an article that is an absolute must-read. If y'all got a link, put it there. The great historian David Blight, who wrote arguably the best biography about Frederick Douglass, has an article. Look at the title. What if history died by sanctioned ignorance? What if history died by sanctioned ignorance? That's in the New Republic magazine, August 7th, 2025. You can go to newrepublic.com. David Blight, B-L-I-G-H, David Blight. His article is called What If History Died by Sanctioned Ignorance? It's a whole critique of all of the different presidential proclamations and executive orders that Trump has put out that attack public history museums, the teaching of it, what's at stake. It's a really great, it's a challenge, and he offers this thing like, hey, you want to have a debate about history? Let's have that debate. You want to have a debate about museums and what they're the storytelling? Let's do that. Because remember, one of the architects of Project 2025 has a PhD in history from I think UVA or
Mm.
from UVA. So don't sleep on the historians. They're the people who crafted those things. So they know what they're doing. So again, Blight's article, What if History Died by Sanctioned Ignorance? NewRepublic.com, August 7th, 2025. Chris Myers asked and George Derek Musgrove, Chocolate City, must have
Gotcha.
everything.
Well,
Yeah, man.
that's it. Usually, you got three and two.
Well, here's the thing. Let me say this. I've been carrying this book around
Yeah,
with me, but I think I recommended it before. And of course, it's getting good trouble, right? You got to
that
have
is
the
on my
Bible.
bookshelf
It's got to
right
be on your
now.
bookshelf. Here's the thing. The reason that I have this book is because I needed a way to remind myself the reason we love John Lewis. And the thing about John Lewis is, again, not a great speaker. Okay. It's not about making great speeches. It's about having great courage.
Mm.
Everything that I read about John Lewis before and in this biography reminds me that what's required of us in 2025 is a kind of public courage that requires us to act, not just to watch, not just to post. Again, the whole kind of armchair social media activist is not enough of a shield for what the opponents of history of public cities is not enough. You have to have a kind of public courage that John Lewis had, that Diane Nash, again, another Chicagoan,
Mhm.
okay,
Shout out.
they had public courage, all right, and that public courage, and they weren't naive about it. The public courage was required. It was a kind of moral force that says the alternative is so much worse. I'm just going to do this thing, right? So we know about John Lewis, we know about the Evan Pettis Bridge, but the issue is that all of us can have public courage about the things that matter to us. And I told you what mattered to me. What matters to me is the public spaces where history is told. I might write an article or a book about something, people won't read it, but people go to the museums. They form their understandings about the past in those public spaces. And we have to have public courage about it. John Lewis is just a model of that. You can have the same thing about Diane Nash. You talk about Douglas. You can look at David Blight's book on Douglas. His book, I wish I had brought it in here. David Blight's biography of Frederick Douglass. If you read that article about history, you then have to go to David Blight's book about Douglas. Again, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. All the things that tie those centuries together is this great well of public courage. Okay, because what the narrative is worth fighting for. Douglas knew it. Ida B. Wells knew it. Okay, we know it. John Lewis knew it. It's not a mystery. It's just can you really act on that courage? We have it within us. We aren't cowards. It's not true. It's that we have to figure out if we can summon that courage for the thing that matters to us. And all of us have something that matters to us when it comes to this American project. We all actually have something that matters to us. So are we busy? Yes. Are the triplets A, B, and C consuming a lot of time for you? Yes. But guess what? We're fighting for them. I'm fighting for my children. You're fighting for your children. What is my granddaughter's name? Her name is Hope.
Mm.
It's not despair. Okay, it's hope. I mean, that's everything. So I don't have an excuse. I have enough children, enough family, enough things that I know to summon hope. And I say, okay, I'm looking, I'm talking on the pod, but where is the place where I'm going to say the buck stops with me? And the buck stops with me with the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That's a note. I'm going to the well on that one, and I'm going to invite people to join me down there. We're going to the well.
I hear that, and I think to your point, because so many things happen. I want to definitely end on that. We all should have a line. It shouldn't just be like everything just knocking us over. Because
Right.
for me, it's always like this: how this funding is affecting children with disabilities and they're diverse, right? And but also
get me started.
But also again, like I'm with you. It's like now I don't want to lie to the future, like because I'm with you. It's not even about me. It's about the grandchildren that I don't even know yet. You know what I'm saying? That will come to me and have a different version of history, and they're gonna get mad. Why is Pop so mad? Because this is not they teach y'all this in school. Now I gotta go to your school. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Listen.
Let's get this right now.
My granddaughters. I want my granddaughters to be proud of me. I want them to know that there may come a time when I can't speak, when I can't do things, and they're like, look, I got my grandfather talking about these things in 2025. I
Yeah.
got two granddaughters, and I'm sure I'll have other grandkids. I'll be blessed with other grandkids if that's what God wants. But the two granddaughters that I have, they will never be able to say that their grandfather was not in the public space, in the public arena, in the square, talking about these issues are about more than me and you. They're about those people. The future does belong to them, and they have a right to have a future.
Yeah, man. World, you the best as always. As every week, I've been learning
Mm.
stuff from you all my life, man.
Nothing but love, man.
Nothing
That's
but
what
love,
happens
bro.
when you have two black men who love each other. So many good things come out of that love, right?
Yeah,
That's why we do it. We do it for love. This is an act of love.
I
This
agree.
is we love each other and we're having a conversation and we're sharing with other people. But guess what? We would have these conversations where there were 10,000 or a million people watching, or just me and you, because
Yeah,
it's the love that matters. It really is. It sounds corny, but it's a very powerful force. It's the most powerful force in the universe, and it really works. It really does.
really does. Well, world, I love you, man. You be safe and you have a good week.
Okay.
All right,
Uh,
watch out for the police state out there, bro.
don't worry. You'll see me. I'm out there. They'll have me. That's okay. Come get me.
We do the pod from the jail,
Exactly.
live from
Free.
DC jail.
I want free Dr. Williams. Okay. I want to turn his name Williams, but my Williams, Dwayne Williams.
Man, I'm
So
gonna
don't worry.
have to make a fake press shirt. Like, hey,
Exactly.
yeah. I'm from BNN. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Bravo, man.
Yeah,
All right.
man.
Look, I love you. We're gonna talk
Love
soon. Okay.
Absolutely love you, bro. Take care, man. So again, I want to thank Dr. Williams for being on the pod with us as always this week. Appreciate his candor as always, and always his perspective on things. And I like, we're gonna use this as a title, a narrative worth fighting for. And I think what he said was perfect. Just how, we are fighting to tell the right narrative to not just us right now, but to our children, our children's children. So, let's be mindful of all that we're watching. Some war information out here. Trump gonna be trumping. So, we got to stay diligent in making sure that the news is what it is supposed to be. So next week, we're going to touch on, man, it's been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina next week, man.
Yeah.
Did you realize that?
I watched a documentary on Hulu
Yeah.
on Katrina, and you talk about being pissed off watching a documentary.
Yeah.
It will set you off, man. Just the sheer incompetence that was going on during that. That should have never happened.
Wow. Okay. I'll make sure I'll look at that. We talk because I do want to touch on that next week.
Sure. Hulu's got one, and then I think Netflix has a look back on it as well. 2020 year look back on it. And as always, the Spike Lee one.
Yeah, that was when the leverage broke, right?
When the leverage broke, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll check out the Hulu one since you watched that, we can talk about at least have an apples to apples conversation. So yeah, but that's something. I don't want to get into it now, but that's just something to highlight.
We'll talk about that.
That's 20 years, man. So
yeah.
But thank you for checking out the Super Duper Pod. We do not take your listens lightly. Make sure you follow us on all socials at S.U.P.A. DUPA POD, online at HP53productions.com. And on YouTube at HP53 Productions. As I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it all.
Fantastic. Make sure you take care of yourselves and each other. Hey, mama, this is the Supa Dupa Podcast.
That's champagne, real pain, champagne from you and I. Wait, you and I? Now that's champagne if you was I. Would you be off on this campaign? Is it suicide? If you know that bringing hope here is how careers die. Or do the K stand for kamikaze? The J silent is everywhere, you can feel them probably. Surely, lately, I've been up late with demons in my basement trying to get me to hate this. Life thinking I should be further and then I choke up. As soon as I got silent, then the truth spoke up. It said, how you know you ain't perfect? Let that soak up and soak in. You know how you know that you blessed? I woke up.